Morning, everybody. Natalie coming to you live. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum. So good. Okay. Let's get started. So, just hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody had a happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to those who are on here. Certainly love my mama. Very, very close to my mama. She's so amazing. Good morning, Joshua. And just very grateful and thankful that I have the mother that I do. Okay. And I hope that you guys have that closeness to your mothers the same way. Um, because there's nothing like a mother's love. There's nothing like that unconditional love that your mother gives you, which is awesome. So hopefully you have that closeness with your mothers. And happy Mother's Day to them. Okay, so let's get started. I actually, before I got on here, it's the first time I felt like, you know, what the world is changing so quickly, and it's just this vast change, and just thinking of like, how do I add value back to people's life, to my life, to connect in a way that's meaningful, to lead or provide information in a way that's meaningful. So, whatever you guys feel, if there's something coming up for you, please share it with me. Please communicate. And we can make this more of a communicative, like, exchange, which is what I would love, because I want to support you, support myself, obviously, as well, into what's next. There's so much going on, there's so much happening. And if we can all just come together in love, in kindness, in compassion, in understanding, I can tell you right now that the separation is what they want to feed us, right? Good morning, Rick. Separation is, and by they, I mean individuals who are sort of wanting to stay in the illusion of this, duality, where duality exists and we talk about it and separation happens. There has been separation between, and they used to use like skin color, all these things that they would use um, to keep us separate from each other, to keep us in silos, keep us compartmentalized, right? And they did it purposefully, right? And I mean, the people that are creating the rules. We don't, I say they as in a group of individuals that sort of meet secretively behind doors and sort of create agendas and force them upon the masses, but make it seem as though it is our choice to be or behave this way. And then they program us right through all these movies, and they program us through all these, TV shows and news and whatever they do. Okay, so they program us, and separation is the biggest thing. And now the biggest separation that they're using is people, the way to distinguish separation at this point is people who wear masks or don't wear masks in public. And I can already tell you for myself some of the ridicule that people will give you, right? Good morning, Quadi. Good morning, Carmen. Um, that's sort of happening. And this is just another attempt, right, at separating people. We are not separate, no matter of the choices that we have. We have a choice, right? And one of the choices that we're given is wear a mask or don't wear a mask. Okay, so the separation that happens is the judgment that is placed upon an individual for making, good morning, Bliss, one choice or the other. Okay, and that's purposefully. Let me judge you for not wearing one, or let me judge you for wearing one. Right? There's that judgment, and we can distinguish it. So if you saw skin color, right, when we talked about black or white, right, when we were there was all this racism going on. There was a distinguished between, I don't wear one either, Quadi. um distinguish between skin colors, and they said, oh well, they're black, they're white, we can distinguish now, we can make judgments upon, and now we can separate. And that separation keeps us in a whirlwind. It locks up our mind. And what it does, it also locks up our energy, because now we're fighting to say, hey, we're equal. And while we sit there and argue about this equality, whatever magicians are in the background doing their thing have another agenda. And they're like, good, we got them preoccupied on this. Now we can do this. While they're fighting over here about this, now we can go and we can do our agendas, which has nothing to do with separation. It has to do with whatever they're doing, which I'm not even going to get into what I believe they do. Okay. And by they, I mean, these people with the money and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here's the deal. What am I going to tell you people on this platform? What is Natalie's thoughts? Again, the platform is beyond me, right? It's bring people back to love, to wholeness, to oneness, to remember that they are one, to remember we are not separate, that we get amnesia every turn of, every time we turn the corner, we have amnesia. It's really hard to stay on track and remember that we are not separate, regardless of whatever mechanisms are put into place to keep us separated. We are one. We are not separate. But we're going to get amnesia over and over and over again. Why? Because that's the human condition. Oh, you must be different than me. You're not wearing a mask. You must be different. Or I'm wearing a mask. That person's not. They must be different. Something's wrong with them. And we have guess what? We have people calling people idiots, right? On both spectrums. Okay. There's people who wear the mask that call people who don't wear the mask idiots. We have people who aren't wearing the masks, and the people that are wearing a mask are, the ones that aren't wearing the mask are calling the ones that are wearing a mask idiots. Here's the deal. Neither one's idiots. Okay. It doesn't matter. It's a choice. It's a personal choice. And why people are choosing what they choose is really up to them. The reality is it our job to judge what people do or don't do? That's the bigger question. Are we going to judge them for not wearing a mask? Are we going to judge them for wearing a mask? And is that our judgment, right? Now, the sickest psychology in all this, and I'm going to tell you um, this, the deepest, rootest, sickest psychology. And then the one thing that triggers me, and this is Natalie speaking, right? Like, this is my probably egoic self talking, I will say, that triggers me and pisses me off more than ever is when they say, oh, wear a mask to save somebody else's life. And I'm thinking, okay, I love people. And of course, I don't want to harm people. But to put that responsibility on me and tell me that I'm responsible for killing somebody because they don't do something, that's the sickest, most convoluted psychological craziness that I feel that they've put into the media. And it makes me sad because now people are starting to feel like they're going to be responsible for people's death by merely existing in this world. That is so convoluted and sick in my mind. It's disturbing. Okay. It's disturbing to hear. We cannot be responsible if somebody gets sick. That's part of the way the human condition works. It's natural law. It's natural. You get it happens all the time, right? So um you go to school. Let's just think about it this way, okay? And I'm going to give you a very very blanket thing. Kids go to school every day. Kids get sick every day when they go to school because there's a lot of germs, a lot of stuff. Teachers get sick sometimes, and I'm sure it's happened more than once, there might be a teacher, an elder teacher who's has a compromised immunity, and maybe they catch a sickness from a kid. They don't go blaming that child for the death of that person. Can you see how disgustingly psychologically weird that sounds? I mean, it's to put that in somebody else's hands. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you must be a cesspool of something. I can't stay near you. Do you understand? I want you guys to understand the psychology of what is happening. Good morning, Betty. Not necessarily that you shouldn't care for someone else's life. Of course we do. But for them, the people who have created these campaigns, the people who have created this convoluted way of thinking, good morning, Suze, to put that out there, right? Save other lives. Do you realize the psychology behind that? Because this is beyond just them saying things. They think things out. Trust me. When the big dogs like the WHO, the World Health CDC, all of these quote unquote leaders, I have my ideas about these leaders too, which I feel like they're psychopaths and sociopaths. I've told you guys that, not in a mean way, not in a, but really believe they don't care about the lives of people. Good morning, Antonio. If they cared about the lives of people, they would be telling people to eat healthy, to they wouldn't be screwing up our food system supplies. They wouldn't be connected to Monsanto. Go back and just do your research, right? Again, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's just the facts. There's facts. Who funds these people? And do those people truly stand for public health? You've got to understand this is a public health thing. And, I'm talking about it because I want you guys to just do your research. Just do your research. Follow the money. The money will tell you what's going on. Look at the people who are backing it, right? It's all corrupt, and we know this. It's corrupt. For what? Power and control. It's it. It's just power and control. Let's keep them separated so that we can stay in power. And they use these tactics. They use psychology, right? They understand the psychology of the human brain. Now we have, good morning, Doreen. Now we have people who are out there thinking they're responsible for people's death. I mean, that's really sick and convoluted in so many ways. So many ways. There's so much research about, just do your research, you guys, please. I just beg you to do that. Just go out and do a little bit. You don't even have to be a a rocket scientist, right? It's just a little bit thing. Yeah, psychology is a powerful weapon. It is because the human mind is fragile and we get amnesia over and over and over again. Good morning, Grace Product. We get amnesia. Yeah, as is TV. Absolutely, Quadi. And we get amnesia, we fall asleep, and then we start to see ourselves separate from one another. They must be different. If they're not wearing masks, they're not one of me. If they're wearing masks, they're one of me. If they don't have a mask on, they're one of me. It's like no, we're all one, regardless. Regardless, it's a personal choice. Okay, people choose. And for us to then judge a person's choice, how come we don't have compassion and understanding or want to understand why? Right. And I can tell you right now that I've been ridiculed already more than once, um, and questioned. And, it's okay. For me, I'm like, look, I know what I believe and I know what I stand for. I don't need to necessarily um, see myself separate or ridicule or make people wrong for the choices they make because I'm not going to do that because it's not my job. It is not our job, but people want to take judgment into their own hands. You must be stupid or you must be this because you didn't do the A, B, C, D, E. We do this on both ends. I hear it happening on both ends. Why? Because separation is a huge, huge tactic to keep us apart. We are not apart. We are one. We are one. We are love. God is with us always. And it gets exhausting trying to bring people to that or even trying to remember that even for ourselves, right? Even for me, sometimes it's exhausting. It's they're the ego is very, very good at tricking us into these separations. It's very good and very deceiving. And sometimes it's really hard to even recognize the psychology. Sometimes it's hard because it's so good, it's so tactful, right? They're thinking about these things very tactfully. Marketing is a very, 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 very tactful thing. They utilize it to get you to buy shit that you don't want. They utilize, right? You don't think they're using marketing for all of what's going on right now? Of course they are. They're marketing to you. That's what they're doing. They're selling you something. Okay? They're selling you something. How do you switch off from this information? I don't know if you switch it off, Quad D. I think, and I don't know that I would say, okay, TV, I say switch off sometimes, and I'm not going to necessarily, from my perspective, say we switch it off completely. It's always going to be there. So for me, what I would say is, instead of switching off the information, is to do research so that you understand the information being presented. Sometimes understanding that information can help you to make better choices for your life. So for instance, if I hear this information, and I'm like, okay, I got the information, I'm going to shut it off. And now I'm going to go look over here. I'm going to look somewhere else. I'm going to look at what are the arguments. There's always counter arguments, right? Okay. It occupies a lot of my time and thoughts. Okay. All right, Kwadi, I totally understand. Thank you for engaging. Um, I did a workshop, and I think this is probably the most important thing that I talked about on here, Spirit and Coffee. One of the most important things that I've actually talked about, and it's called the trivium. The trivium is something that was taken out of our schools. It was taken out of everything. Why? Because when someone can think critically for themselves, they become a weapon, right? And thoughts. And we know that strategic planning, we know that the mind, that it's a lot more powerful than even, guns and wars and stuff like that. Think about it. Someone who is on the verge of shooting somebody, but if you can talk them out of it, you can probably have them hand over the gun. Our mind is so powerful. Super powerful. But here's the deal, we get caught and trapped in our thoughts of what's going on, of all the information. We start going down the rabbit hole. We don't know how to turn it off. We freak ourselves out. We get a little scared. All these things start to happen. And now we're caught up in a whirlwind of chaos and don't know how to get out of it. Here's the deal. If you use the trivium provides you the opportunity to break down the dichotomy in any kind of subject. So if you looked at a situation, you'll understand that everything comes to separation. There's distinction. And as a master once told me, right, one master trainer, the mastery lies in distinguishing distinctions, meaning that we live out of collapsed distinctions. What does that mean, right? You're like, okay, it sounds pretty. What the hell does that even mean? It means that there are certain words and thoughts processes and thoughts of understanding and schools of thought that sort of have created, right, the way that we engage and perceive the world around us. How do we communicate the world around us? How do we describe things that we see? And in that is what we called a dichotomy, or a split, or a catch 22, where we find the separation between the two, where we say, oh, there's a black and a white. Okay, because we live in a world, quote unquote, of duality. We think that we're separate from each other, but we're not. But that illusion of separation, the thing that causes that separation, is the reason why we get caught up in those thoughts. The best thing to do is to ask yourself, what is it that I'm caught up in? What are the thoughts that I'm caught up in? Okay. So if there's thoughts that you're caught up in that seem to be sort of a repeating pattern for yourself, start to dig a little deeper, do a little bit of research. Now, research in the way that you start to look at the etymology of the word. The trivium, which I love, and I love teaching about it, is because it breaks down the grammar. We are just a bunch of symbols. Like when we talk, it's just symbols, really. Everything we've ever made is made up. It's not even real. We've just made it up. We made it up because we had words to describe what we were seeing. Those words can be changed, modified, morphed, and that's what's happened over time. So if there's something in particular, like for instance, I did a whole thing on the corona. What does that even mean? And I started to do research on the crown. I went to the etymology of the word. It took me into astrology. I looked into astrology and I found dispensationalism, which is the breakdown of the Bible, which is kind of cool. And it shows you the administrative process that God's in. In other words, we say that God um, will manifest in the material world. Well, what does the administration look like of that? How do we administer the laws and principles of God that were given to us? Okay. So again, it's being able to break down the words that you're speaking, the thoughts that you're thinking. People don't even know what some of the words that they're speaking mean. They have no clue. They're just speaking. It sounds good. It sounds pretty. They have an idea, they have the definition, but they don't know the etymology. And that's where there is this big disconnect. When we start to break down the etymology of the word and we understand what the original meaning was, we can start to break down the pieces of the things that trap us. And when we are fearful of something, that we break it down into pieces and we recognize that there's this separation. And that's what I'm talking about right now, the separation. They use separation. It's a very simple tactic, you guys. They repeat it over and over again. And I mean the people that are in control, right? The ones that are controlling the social media platforms, the ones that are controlling the news and all this. They're starting to censor stuff. They censor stuff. Why? Because they're like, no, we don't want you to think for yourself. We're going to tell you what to think. And so we cannot allow you to be critical thinkers because when you become a critical thinker and you think for yourself, you become a weapon of us. You're going to start to speak out. You're going to be able to speak with clarity, right? You're going to be able to stand firm on your principles and not waver in them. If somebody were to come up to you, would be like, I know who I am. You can't tell me different. I made these choices and this is why. And you can't tell me that I can't make these choices because who are you? You're not my judge. I'm not doing anything that's harmful. Everything I do is out of love. And I understand why I do that. When did I wake up to this reality? Quad D, what do you mean by that? What reality? When did I wake up to this, realize this was all an illusion or all a dream and none of it was real and that we're just making up a bunch of crazy weird shit and that all the weird shit that we're making up is just some is so convoluted and disturbing that you can't even, you're like, ugh, I can't even look at that. I've always I don't know that I so here's the quick answer. I've always known. And what does that mean? That means that as a little kid, I've always known. When I first came to this world, I said, take me back. That's what I told my mom. I want to go back home. I don't want to be here. This is not an easy realm to live in. That's what I'm going to say. Being human is not easy. Being human is one of the hardest things we have. Okay. Being human is probably one of the hardest things we'll ever go through. Can I say that for sure? Not 100%, but I do know that it has been a challenge, right? There's beauty in it. Don't get me wrong, because God is everywhere. Beauty is going to be in everything. But to go through this world and to survive it and to go through an entire lifespan where you die naturally of natural causes, and I'm going to say natural causes such as, all the things that might, like disease, we get disease, and that's really what happens if people don't understand what disease is. It's really just the decomposition of cells. It's cells that are no longer good or can no longer function. Our body after a certain point stops producing and it decays. That's really what happens. Okay. We get disease and we die. Okay. Always remember these people are worse off than ourselves. Yeah. I think the psychology of these people is really off. It's really kind of disturbing, but I then part of me thinks, well, are they just part of a program and that they will never understand like a robot, right? Like a robot, I don't know, could a robot ever truly have feeling, right? And if it didn't have feeling, would it be okay with just killing people and not care? Well, yeah. So I think some of these people are just literally don't care. They do not care, period. You can try to make them care and they're not going to. They don't get it. They don't feel it. They don't care about it. We will keep coming and going till we learn this lesson. Yes, Suze. And that's the thing. So that gets me to a lot. Well, there's a lot of subjects that I want to talk about. Trust me. The kids, think about the children who are suffering at this point, all of the human trafficking and all of this stuff, right? That's this just it's so convoluted and disturbing. Okay, those are the words that I want to use. Disturbing. It's disturbing that I cry for those children that I have seen firsthand for myself. I've been to um countries that are very poor. I've seen poverty at its extreme, um and seen children on the streets. I did a lot of research around sex trafficking and all this stuff and had to get out of it because I was getting so sick to my stomach. I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. Thinking that people could be involved in this stuff, right? There's prayer that needs to happen beyond what we could possibly imagine. There's so much convoluted, sick, disturbing things that people do. Why, I don't know. How they can, the psychology be I just don't get it, right? And again, is it to judge? No, it's to love, it's to cry, it's to feel empathy and pray for these children. Like I wish that I could just heal and take everybody out of the suffering, right? Not something that I have the power to do. I wished I did. I really do. I tried and I couldn't even stomach it. Okay. Because it's just sort of, ugh, trust me, not cool. Even to the point of going on a train in India, right? And just, we of course, because we live in a lot of privilege, and I'm very very fortunate for the life that I have. This, I mean, I really am, and I want to be able for people to experience life the way that I have in a lot of ways. I've gone through hardships, but this is a different level of suffering, right? A level that I will never be able to understand. And on a train, and just we were in the cart, and of course we were on like the first class cart, in India, and walking to the back of the train, and it was we continued to walk back further. um I didn't feel right. My friend wanted to do it, and I just felt like we were totally I didn't feel right doing it, but I kept doing it with my friend because she really wanted to see the truth, the reality of what was happening on the carts in the back. And I'm surprised they even let us go through, to where we saw this little girl who pretty much died in front of our face, who was in poverty, poor, sick. The father had her. I mean, it was awful. And then they had people like cattle in the back of the train. These people were poor and I don't know what they were doing. It was just not good. And I told my friend, we need to get out of here. This is not a place for us to be. Like I felt disrespectful. But then on the same token, it was good to see that there was this sort of reality of like, wow, this really happens, right? To have children come up to you and beg for money and for food when really, they're being trafficked by people, and you can't do anything about it. You can't save them. You can't. It's just this big nebulous, like, disturbing thing, and it happens everywhere, and it's happening now. And I think that we're trying to illuminate those darker places. I think that right now the political arena, as they continue to do these god awful, God knows, pedophilia, God knows what they're doing, right? That we're focused on who's wearing a mask and not. I mean, come on, you guys. Do you know how many millions and trillions of kids are suffering at the hands of people in high political power? I mean, I've done the research, you guys. It's pretty disgusting. And we're going to judge our neighbors for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. They want us to keep our eye on these tiny little things of be upset with your neighbor so that we don't focus on the real things that are going on. The things that have killed millions of people, the things that have caused so much suffering for so many individuals that no one ever talks about. It's really hard for me to go through this convoluted psychological programming that they're doing right now. It's just, to me, is disgusting in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's not real, but a virus is not our problem. That's not the issue. There's bigger issues at play. And when I think about the scale, the massive disturbance that these people that are running our world right now, running amok, are part of something so disgusting and convoluted. Look it up. It's not conspiracy theory. There's been people, pedophiles. You don't think these kids, how many millions of kids have suffered, and we're not focusing on that at all. So caught up in this weird virus thing that's not even, I mean, yeah, people have died, but look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers of children who are mutilated every day. How did we forget that? How do we have amnesia about that right now? Like, you guys, please wake up. I don't know any other way to say it. Like, wake up. I just wish that I could do something, and I feel helpless in a lot of ways. And the only thing I know how to offer is prayer and love. Remember who you are, right? Remember. Remember who you are. Remember that God is with you. Remember that you are love. If you remember those things, and you won't judge the people, right? You won't judge what they're doing, right? You'll remember that you're a warrior of God, and that God is with you always, and that God loves you. And that God doesn't go away. It's not going to go away, right? It's not. This is so beyond a virus, you guys. There's some very disturbing things that are going on behind the scenes that somehow we've forgotten. You know, pray for the children. Like, that's a big one on my heart right now. These kids, the children, these kiddos that they're sucked into this weird, convoluted, I, I don't know what it is. Like, I can't even understand how people can do this. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But people want to be focused on what the media is feeding them, right? So that they can forget that there's these bigger things that are happening in the world, right? That there's kids that suffer at the hands of these sick, convoluted people. They're disturbed people. Okay. and not to judge these people. It's because we've got to love that no matter what, and it's really hard to do that. It's not an easy thing, right? For someone to stand for love no matter what means, yeah, we get to love those individuals who are doing the sick, convoluted things that we can look at what we call maybe devil or Satan or hell or whatever you want to call it, right? There's different names for it. This thing, this nebulous ego, this thing, and love it anyway. Not an easy task. It's not easy. It's easier just to say, I'm going to turn my face from you and pretend like you don't exist, and then really just be upset because people are wearing masks or not masks when there's bigger things happening in this world right now that are so beyond that, that are so far beyond that, that have killed more people, that have mutilated, have, I mean, there's so much that goes on. There's so many missing children. There's so many, and we just are not even focused on that anymore. It's almost like they've put our for look at the numbers. It doesn't even add up. It doesn't even amount to what has been done in this world to the children, to the kiddos, to the it makes me nauseous to talk about this stuff because I get very, very disgusted. And I've told you, I've tried to do research around this. And I just feel like these people will be exposed. They will be exposed because that's God's promise. God's promise is starting to unfold in front of our face. Don't let this tiny thing that they want to separate us by be the reason that we continue the story of separation, that we continue to say, oh, you're different from me. We are not different. So many of us are loving, and they're using this psychology of separation to continue to do their little dirty deeds. Go do your research, you guys. Please, please, please. I don't know how else to tell you. And come back to love, right? Just come back to love. Pray. Pray for the kiddos. Prayer right now, I mean, all I know how to do is pray. I got up this morning and I'm starting this ritual in the morning where there's this beautiful song, Holy, Holy, Holy Lord of all hosts is what it is, but it's done in the fire letters, right? So it's Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth, Sabayoth, Sabayoth, Sabayoth. It is you can find it, you can play it, and every morning my ritual is going to be to meditate to that, right? To send out some prayer and vibrational frequency to um heal, right? Those that are damaged, those that are sort of going through this craziness. Good morning, Jeff. So true. Trying to wake friends up and family is very hard. It is very hard. And, I think it's not our job to wake people up. It's not our job to make people choose, but we can simply plant seeds. And that's sort of what I do. And hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully people will eventually put water on those seeds and grow them. Good morning, Tim. But remember what it's almost like in the Hunger Games, it's like, remember who the true enemy is. Remember, remember, remember. It's not your neighbor wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. That's not your enemy. Okay, so if we continue to focus on that, if we continue to focus on they're different than I am, we're going to continue the story of separation, right? And ascension, if we are to ascend, if we are to purify the soul, we have to remember that we're all one. We are all one. We are all united. But it's easier for people to point fingers, and it sort of alleviates some of their fears or their misconceptions, or they don't want to understand, or they don't seek understanding, or maybe they're self-righteous. And there's a lot of things that go into it, right? Of why people think we are separate. We're not separate. We're one. We're one. Even the parts of us we don't like, that will be healed. And the promise will be 100% promised, right? It was a promise that was given to us. And we know that the pure heart always transcends. So, in order to ascend, right, we have to remember we're one. If you're not going to ascend, you're going to stay in what we call the illusion of separation and duality. So, continue to stay there. And that's what you're going to end up getting, us versus them. It's the greatest trick. And this psychology behind it right now is pretty convoluted. Oh, but you're going to save somebody else's life. Oh, so now their death is my responsibility? Like I killed somebody? That's so sick, because the psychology that they're playing in your brain is called reverse psychology, number one. And it's really kind of disturbing. It's disturbing. Yes, and child abuse is a bad thing. And beyond child abuse, there's pedophiles. So you got to understand, we are dealing with something so convoluted, you guys. It's beyond this thing that we're going through right now. Children, millions of children disappear. And we don't talk about that. No. There's not a state of an emergency to find out what happened to all these children. Okay. Pretty heavy morning. I know. Sorry, it's Monday. Cheers. But I do this because I truly, truly, truly want you guys to remember we are not separate. Mi casa es tu casa. I'm looking at people and saying, do your research. That's it. Just go out and do a little bit of research. If you just do a little bit of research, think for yourself, okay? And Quadi, again, it will happen. I separated from my family when I went through my journey. They thought I was the weirdo. And I still am. I'm pretty weird. I'm a weirdo. I'm kind of a weirdo. Actually, I'm not kind of. I'm really a weirdo. But I separated from my family and I lived in India for a year, and I don't do things the traditional way that my family would like me to do it. And I was very different from everybody in my family, quite frankly. And I did it because they needed to understand that everything I was doing was for love. Now, circling back around, which was very hard, coming back around, now they get why I did what I did. And now they're starting to say, oh, I get it. So if you know that what you're doing is doing it for love and the intention of well-being of others, and so that you can ascend or you can awaken or you can crack open those patterns that have been holding you back, then just continue that way. You will find people who will support you along the journey. And it's probably not going to be your family members, and that is okay. That just means that you may be the breaker of chains in your family, that somehow you're untangling the karma in your family. That's a big responsibility to have, to be the breaker of chains in your family. My dad used to always tell me that, Natalie, break the chains. And I was like, okay. It's like a huge responsibility for like a 5, 6 year old, but I was like, I'm going to do this. Go to school, get an education, do all these things. And I did. I said, okay, I'm willing to take on the challenge. So sometimes we become the breaker of chains in our family. Not an easy thing, because our family's going to ridicule you. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to mock you. I've been mocked, ridiculed, crucified, made fun of, told off, been called names by my family. I've been nailed to the cross. I've been everything you can imagine. And I didn't care. I did it anyway because I knew I was doing it in love. I used to get very upset with being mocked. I got mocked quite a bit. But it was okay. I understood why I was doing the things that I was doing. And now I'm close to my family. Now they're like, okay, we get she's weird, but we get it. We get why. We understand. There's this bigger thing that's happening for her. It's not just about herself, right? There's this sort of altruism that comes over an individual who wants to give back, who knows that they can give back in some way. And when you reach that level of altruism, right, you're like, how do I give back? Well, first you got to get yourself right. And that means sometimes stepping away so that then you can come back to give. So right now you may not have enough to give, or you may have enough to give, but it's not in the way your family wants to receive. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to say, look, I love you, family, but I've got to do this for me. And I'm doing it for us as a family too, but I'll come back to that. And that's what's happened with me. Full circle. Full circle. Not an easy task. Was not easy. Still not sometimes, but it's okay. They understand me now, I think. I don't know if anyone understands me, but they get it. They get me. They're like, okay, we get Natalie. She's like, this is who she is. She does her little research. She's da 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 da, and all everything that she does is who she is. But I do it in love, and I make sure my family's taken care of. And so now I circle back to take care of my family because I'm able to. I've always said, live and let live. Yes. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. I know it's pretty heavy Monday. Sorry. In case you didn't know it was Monday, it's Monday. um, but I love you guys and let's pray. Let's pray for the kiddos. Like that's really what I'm asking right now. I just think of these kiddos that are been forgotten. They're forgotten right now because we're so busy focused on things that are like, oh, you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask. Who gives a shit right now? When there's kids that are being trafficked and suffering and probably dying on a daily basis because they've been forgotten again. They've been forgotten. Please, you guys, pray for them. Pray for those kiddos, those children. Send your hearts out to them. Love your neighbors regardless of the choices that they make. Stop focusing on the things that are like this thing that they want us to keep focusing on and focus on what's true to humanity, what's true to your heart. There's domestic violence going on. There's more probably molestation and craziness. And I'm saying this very happening right now, where we're not remembering that the psychology, the sickness of the human mind and condition happening right now. And if we can pray for that and bring our hearts to that and think about all of the dirty, corrupt things that so many of these individuals have done, have been brought to life. All of a sudden, we're not focused on it. All of a sudden, we've forgotten. Let's focus on who's wearing a mask, who's not. Let's focus on they're dumb, they're smart, they're stupid. Why are they not doing this? They don't pay attention. Let's da 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 da. And we're like totally forgot, have amnesia that there's this other thing where we just found pedophiles and where are they right now? We stopped all that. That's all just stopped. Like it's just forgotten. And now we'd rather judge our neighbors and all this than to focus on healing the planet, healing the sickness that's happening with all of these leaders that are leading our country. We know that they're sick. There's a sickness there, and we're not even focused on healing that. So please focus on healing that, is what I'd say. Pray, please pray, and wake up, please, and do a little bit of research, please, or don't. It's really up to you, but I highly encourage that you do. Okay. Okay. I didn't know where this was going to go today, and it went really deep. Obviously, got a lot on my mind. Go do kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. I'm gonna put it up on my Facebook so you guys can go and do that meditation. So awesome. Okay. All right. So I love you guys. Have a fantastical day. I will be seeing you all tomorrow. Cheers. If you guys have any comments, concerns, questions, I'm good, Ahmed. Thank you for saying good morning. Please, 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 you can reach out to me at spiritandbrew@gmail.com, or you can inbox me on my Spirit and Coffee Talk on Facebook. I'm here to support you guys in any way that I can, okay? All right, good. So I love you. Have a great day, and I will be seeing you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Love you too, Suze.